Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Learning with Maurya. My name is Pawan Maurya and I am studying in Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering, Bengaluru, fourth year, Department of ISC. Today I am going to explain the subject of user interface and design, and the subject code is 18CS734, and in this subject we are going to discuss about the types of windows and some features also. So let's discuss about the topics without further delay. So the topic is types of windows in uid. The contents of the types of windows in uid is introductions, primary windows, secondary windows, model windows, modeless windows, pop-ups windows, splash screens, tools windows, choosing the right types of windows, advantage and disadvantage of the different type of windows, the introductions of the of types of windows in uid is when windows are an essential part of user interface. They allow user to interact with the application and data in a variety of ways. There are many different types of windows, each with its own specific purpose. In this presentation, we will discuss the different types of windows that are commonly used in UIS. We will also discuss how to choose the right types of windows for each task. The primary windows. The primary windows are the main windows of an application. They typically contain the main controls and functionality of the application. The examples of the primary windows: the main windows of a word processor, the main windows of a web browser, the main windows of a file explorer. The secondary window. The secondary windows are windows that are opened from within a primary window. They are typically used to perform supplemental tasks or multiple tasks, such as entering information or selecting information or replacing the informations. The examples of the secondary windows. The examples of secondary windows is a dialog box for saving files, a dialog box for finding and replacing the text, a windows for viewing help documentation. The model windows. The model windows are windows that must be closed before the user can interact with the primary windows again. This ensures that the user focuses on the task at hand and does not accidentally close the primary window. The examples of the model windows. The examples of the model windows is a dialog box for saving the files, a dialog box for confirming a deletion, a dialog a windows for entering a password. The modless window. The modless windows can be open at the same time as the primary windows, and the user can interact with both windows freely. This is useful for tasks that do not need to be completed immediately, such as finding and replacing text or viewing help documentation. The examples of the modeless windows is windows for viewing a help documentation, or windows for displaying the system notifications, a window for playing music, and etc. The pop-up windows. The pop-up windows are small windows that appear on top of other windows. They are typically used to display important messages or notification. The examples of the pop-up windows. The examples of the pop-up windows. A pop-up windows to alert the user that a new email has arrived or any kinds of notification which has arrived. A pop-up windows to warn that user that they are trying to delete an important file. While deleting the files, the pop-up windows will pop the one importance notification to alert the users. A pop-up windows to display a system error message. Splash screen or splash screen are the splash screens are windows that appear when application is first starting up. They are typically used to display the application's logo and copyright of informations. Splash screen are not strictly necessary, but they can help to create a more polished and professional user experience. The examples of the splash screens is the splash screen for a word processor, the splash screen for a web browser, the splash screen for a video games, the tools windows are windows that contain tools and control for performing specific tasks. Tool windows are typically docked to the edge of the main windows, but they can also be floating windows. The examples of the tool windows, a toolbar for accessing common commands, palette for displaying different types of colors, windows for viewing and editing properties. The choosing the right types of windows when designing a UI. It is important to choose the right type of window for each task. The following factors should be considered: the importance of the task, complexity of the task, amount of information that need to be displayed. The importance of the task. The importance of the task is model window should be used for important tasks that need to be completed before the user can continue working in the primary windows. Modeless windows can be used for tasks that do not need to be completed immediately. The complexity of the task. The complexity of the task is a complex task, such as a configuring a printer or setting up a network connection should be performed in a secondary window. This will prevent the user from accidentally closing the primary windows and losing their work. The amount of information that need to be displayed. The amount of information that need to be displayed is a large amount of information that need to be displayed, and it should be displayed in a secondary window. This will prevent the primary windows from becoming cluttered and difficult to use. And the advantage and disadvantage of the different types of windows. The advantage and disadvantage of the different types of windows is primary windows. The advantage and disadvantage of the advantage and disadvantage of the primary windows is the advantage of the primary window. The advantage of a primary windows is allow the user to focus on a single task. The provides a consistent user experience. The disadvantage of the primary windows. The disadvantage of the primary windows is it is that can be limiting if the user needs to perform multiple tasks at the same time. The advantage and disadvantage of the secondary windows. The advantage of the secondary windows is allow the user to perform multiple tasks at the same time, provide a way to display supplemental information or multiple information at the same time. Disadvantage of the secondary window. It can be distracting if the user is not careful. Can make the user cluttered and difficult to use. The advantage and disadvantage of the model windows. The advantage of the model windows is ensure that the user focuses on the task, prevent the user from accidentally closing the primary windows. The disadvantage of the model windows. The disadvantage of the model windows, it can be interruptive and disruptive. While performing the task, it can make the UI cluttered and difficult to use. Modeless window, the advantage and disadvantage of the modeless windows. The advantage of the modeless windows is allow the user to perform multiple types of tasks at the same time, provide a way to display supplemental information such as help documentation or system notifications. The disadvantage of the modeless windows is it can be distractive if the user is not careful while working or performing the multiple tasks. It can the UI clutter and difficult. It make the UI clutter and difficult to users to use the users. Pop-up windows. The advantage and disadvantage of the pop-up windows. The advantage of the pop-up windows. It can be used to display important messages or notification that requires the user attentions. It can be used to display important information that is only relevant to the current task. The disadvantage of the pop-up windows. The disadvantage of the pop-up windows, it can be intrusive and disruptive. Interruptive and disruptive. It can be accidentally closed, resulting in the loss of data or functionality. It can obscure the other windows, making it difficult to work. The splash screen, the advantage and disadvantage of the splash screens is the advantage of the splash screen is it can be used to create a more polished and professional user experience. It can be used to display the application's logo and copyright informations. The disadvantage of the splash screens. The disadvantage of the splash screen, it can be to be annoying if they are too long or too frequent. It can be obscure other windows, making it difficult to work. It can be used to delay the startup of the application, especially on slower computers. The tools window, the advantage and disadvantage of the tools windows. The advantage of the tools windows is provide a way to access tools and controls for performing a specific task. It can be docked to the edge of the main window so they are always available but out of the way when not in the use. The disadvantage the disadvantage of the tool windows. The disadvantage of the tool windows, it can make the UI cluttered and difficult to use, especially if there are a lot of tools windows. It can be accidentally closed, resulting in the loss of functionalities. Thank you for watching this video.